that's easy.
Yep, Jack.
Yeah, I made it.
All right, everybody ready?
We gave, hey David, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
All right. Good evening. Call the meeting to order. If you please stand and join me for the pledge.
Where is it?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Glad I turned my phone off. It just went off.
Thank you.
Bring my phone.
Good job.
All right.
It's chasing me now.
Next, we're going to be moving down to the approval of the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of the June 27th regular meeting and then the special 29th board retreat and the July bills with a total of, is that the correct total or was it a different number?
There's a new number.
Of $743,012.64. And I'll pause for anyone that didn't get their questions answered on the budget, if anyone needs any of those, or the bills.
What'd you say that new amount was?
Thank you, Ms. Linda. $743,12.64.
I'll make a motion we accept.
I'll second it.
So we moved and seconded. Is there any questions or discussion prior that anyone didn't get answered? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Thank you. Next, we're going to look to adopt the agenda for the remainder of the regular meeting. We had one addition in D under new business. And we also have moved the initial Perkins Freedom Mobility Therapy Unlimited and the compliance plan from the consent area down to section F, if you didn't see the revised agenda.
Which ones, the compliance is going down?
They're in the correct places in the packet,
Oh, okay.
in your packet that you received, just not in the same place that you saw them last Friday. Yes, sir.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Going back to the bills, is there some reason we can't see the deposits too? We just look at the checks. Is there some reason we can't see what the deposits are and where they go?
We can get more information on that. Yeah.
I mean, it seems like we only get about half of what we spend our money for. What's our income?
We'll bring some more income figures. Sadly, our income is very low in the summertime because most of our payments have already been received, but we can also do that. We also will be receiving some insurance payments. I've received a little bit of that, so we can definitely make sure that we're showing our ins, not just our outs.
Yeah,
So.
I appreciate that.
All right. So I need someone to motion that we approve the agenda as typed.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving down to public comments, I'm going to pause for a couple of minutes to see if there's anyone here for those this evening.
And get a napkin to clean up his soda. That's hilarious. He spilled the soda. He spilled the soda.
Well, while he's gone, I'll make a comment. I had two people this past week come up to me and say that Marshall schools were not accredited.
Well, that's a dumb statement.
I know, I blew the first one off, but the second one would be part of the 15% make noise. So Linda very graciously, as she always is, investigated, and we are fully accredited. So I went to that second person today and told them that
Good
we
job.
are accredited. And I said, where did you get that information?
They won't tell
Who's doing that? And she said, I won't give you a name, but
There
it's
you go.
just some people that I know. She said, I'll put a stop to it. So
Well, that'd be nice.
Very good.
anyway, thank you.
Seeing no public comments, I will move on. I do encourage you, if you do have questions such as accreditation or what's going on, that you come and ask some of the sources. I was speaking with a community member tonight that's here, who is just here to make sure she hears the answers from us and directly from us. So I encourage everyone to do that so that you get the correct answers and create less confusion in your community. So, moving down to reports. I will start with Superintendent Mr. Pettit.
All right, everybody. So it's unusual for me to stay seated, but I think this microphone helps. If you don't mind, I might try to move away from it in just a minute. Oh, you have a portable. Okay, very good. So I'm going to go through this, and I thank Wesley for helping me out with that as I've put some things together here, and I'm going to try to give a 10,000-foot view. Unfortunately, we're going to have to jump between a few articles, but if you'll go ahead and be ready to help me here. This is going to quickly require me to jump around. When I interviewed for the position with Marshall Public Schools, the Board of Education and I, through that process, I discussed commitment of the first 100 days if I were offered and accepted this position, which obviously I have as I sit here with you today. And I am excited to be here and make true on that promise to the Board of Education and show you this next document, if you would please, sir. And I almost certainly will move closer to that for my own eyes, actually. But as I go through some of these things, I will tell you that some of this may seem a little redundant as we go through, so forgive me if I seem as if I'm going fast right now. I'm going to hit on many of these things a couple of different times. Batteries?
There's a mic on the end.
Yeah, I'll just stay close to this and see if we can hear me. Okay, so the first thing, and this is actually prior to the first 100 days, and I want to start with thanking this Board of Education. They spent an 8-hour day with a working lunch, so they didn't stop and have an hour lunch. They worked for 8 hours straight. And we spent some time at Missouri Valley College, and I want to thank them as well for opening up that venue to us to allow us to have that time together. That was really only one of many days that this board has worked in addition to the regular monthly meetings. And through that day in the process, the board was able to adopt the new strategic plan for the district, and they revised it to incorporate the findings of a data dive that was done last spring. You all hired a consultant, Dr. Jim Henson, who worked to do that data dive. It canvassed the community, external stakeholders, students, staff, and administration, and then looked at the strategic plan that the district had been working on previously, but they adopted this document. I'm going to talk quite a bit about it this evening because I think it's very powerful, and I'll say this a couple of times. It's great to have a plan, but it needs to be just more than a plan that sits on a shelf that's referenced. I really think this is a living document that requires measurement of our progress towards goals. And the way that it has been constructed, the board has a document that's going to require the administration and myself to report to them where we are as a district, how things are changing and moving, or if we're lacking the vision that we had hoped for, why, and what are we going to do about it. And it's an important thing to have in your governance plan. It also gets the district in compliance with the new MSIP 6 requirements, which is good because we're in Tier 1 of the new MSIP 6 model, which is a tongue twister. This gets us in compliance and prepared for that, as we are one of the first schools in the state that will go through the monitoring process. That's kind of scary, but actually I think it couldn't be better timing for Marshall Public Schools for us to be able to work with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, have them come in, work with us, look at this governance plan and how we're measuring our progress towards our goals, and being able to report back to our community and DESE itself to show that we are doing things with kids in mind. Jumping ahead through a few things there. Risk assessment audit is something that the Board of Education also approved during that day, that 8-hour-long day of a board retreat. They approved the purchase of an assessment audit, which means we're going to have an outside auditing firm, CPA firm, is going to come in and look through our financial practices as a district and prepare a report to give to the public and to the Board of Education in terms of how do we collect money, deposit and manage money, what checks and balances do we have, are we being proactive to make sure we don't have any weaknesses that could lend itself to fraudulent activity. That in conjunction with the fact that we're getting a risk, or not a risk assessment, a regular annual audit right now, we're gonna have a lot of things to
There.
be able to present to the public and the board. It's a slow process, but I'd say somewhere between October and the end of November, we should have a lot of expert opinions on where we are in terms of our financial practices. If we could scroll down just a little bit, please, sir. Sorry. Up, I should say. Doesn't want to cooperate. There we are. We want to start a culture in the next 100 days as an administrative team that's going to ask and measure all considerations with the Board of Education with these three principles. Is it best for kids? Is it best for the district? And is it best for the community? Is a mindset and a philosophy that we're going to try to apply to our practices and our implementation of this new governance plan that I'm excited about. I think the Board of Education has been asking for that, and I hope to deliver it and you to see and feel that has been applied in the first 100 days as we work through things. We also have, in fact, the Board of Education will get in a first reading form tonight that you'll probably see next board meeting. They have asked to think about and create, in conjunction with the administration, board meeting norms, which is going to double as kind of a training tool and some goals for us as a Board of Education and district to say this is how the Board of Education will facilitate the directing of the district according to best practices. And lastly, we're working to prepare a public statement, and the Board of Education will give its final nod of approval on that, I believe, tonight for release after tonight's board meeting, to deliver to the media regarding our work to ensure, as we start the new school year, we are working diligently to create better policies, practices, and procedures to protect our students. Those are things the board has directed. They've asked of me in the hiring process, and I'm excited to get to work and deliver for them things like handbooks, et cetera. They have made it very clear this is what they want for the Marshall Public School District, and we're excited to get to work creating those documents with them. All right, last few things here, and these I'll go really quick. Exit interviews, within the next first 100 days, we're gonna have a new exit interview process. We know that as a district, not only as a district, but public education as a whole, we've struggled to fill teaching positions since the start of this pandemic. You can't find more honest employees than the employees who say we're leaving, resigning, retiring, et cetera, to ask, what could we do better to retain you or recruit you and to keep you? So we're going to revise our exit interview and have a process created for the Board of Education to approve so that by the time we get to the spring hiring season, if you will, when teachers typically resign, we want to be able to present to the Board of Education and the community and say, this is what we're hearing, so we can make plans for how to try to combat these shortages that we're seeing everywhere and stay ahead of it. Facebook pages are being consolidated across the district. We'll talk a lot more about that in depth in a minute. And we're working to improve how we communicate with our stakeholders in formats that we're familiar with, such as Textcaster, that we already have, but we have other tools already in our tool belt, so to speak, where we can actually send voice recorded messages to parents, students, grandparents, et cetera. And we're working to get that ready because in cases of emergency, we need to have a good communication plan for how do we respond, and what format do we respond, and when do we respond. All these things are in our governance plan documents, and I'm excited to get that shared out, and we have some really talented people in the district that are going to work to help make that happen. We'll have one of them, Daniel Wright, come present to us next month about the work that's already being started on that. Okay, so with that said, we're going to jump a couple documents here. Let's just go ahead and jump to the governance plan itself really quickly. I will not read the entire governance plan to you tonight. It is posted on the website as of last Friday evening. I am going to jump to the second slide, please, sir. This shows you the 8 pillars that the district has approved. Communication, teaching and learning, high-quality faculty and staff, facilities, fiscal resources, leadership, culture and climate, safety and security. Those are the umbrellas that the Board of Education has said our new governance plan is going to work to improve in these areas. We're going to measure our progress towards the goals that are clearly defined, and I'm going to show you just one of them so you can see how this is structured. If you could go one more slide, please, sir. So these are all SMART goals. We love our acronyms in education very much. Each slide, each facet of these 8 pillars are built this way. The acronym being specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Going to just go through this one to give you an example. So the pillar, one of the 8 pillars is communication. First step, develop a comprehensive communication plan. Specifically, the superintendent or designee with a team representative of the district will convene for the purposes of creating a plan to ensure that it includes detailed strategies, identifying the persons responsible for each strategy and a timeline. What I really like about the governance model that Marshall Public Schools has adopted here is every piece of it is measurable. It's part of the plan. So how will we measure it? Written communication will be created and presented to first myself as superintendent, and then presented to the school board for approval. It has to be attainable, it's gotta be realistic. With a designated team, they'll execute the creation of the plan, reaching internal and external stakeholders. The creation of this plan, it says, does not have a budgetary impact. That's also in each step of these 8 pillars. Does it have a financial impact or not? Is it relevant? How and why? I won't read that whole thing, but if you skip all the way to the bottom, it references MSIP 6, which gets us prepared for those requirements as we're about to be monitored by the state of Missouri, and I think we're well ahead of the game for that process. And lastly, time bound. When does it happen? This is posted online, and if it says it's going to be presented to the board, it will be presented to the board. The only exception is going to be times when you have contractor issues and things when they do have financial implications, but this is how each step of the governance plan works. And if we could back out of that, or actually, can we go forward one slide first? So just because there's only 8 pillars doesn't mean we don't draw it out, of course. This one talks about the next step of the plan, which comes to the board in December. Intentionally build relationships and partnerships with internal and external stakeholders. We'll talk more about that. Let's go back to the PowerPoint now, please, sir. All right. So I've introduced first the governance plan and those 8 pillars. I want to talk now, how does that, what's that going to look like for Marshall Public Schools? How is the board directing this, and how does it actually translate to something our community, staff, and students can be proud of? So I'm sticking with that communication pillar, which is due, the first piece of it is due in October. It has started with first preliminary meetings that we have already conducted with our administrative team, many of whom came in on their time off, worked extra time to have conversations. I appreciate them a ton for their willingness to do what's best for kids. And we talked about what things do we need to do to be ready to present to the Board of Education and have them feel reassured that we're doing what they've called us to do. We talked about first that we had numerous, we'll find out next month how many. Mr. Wright just emailed me today and said he keeps finding more Facebook pages and groups, probably pushing upwards of 10 or 12 out there. And we're going to consolidate them, because if Facebook is the powerful tool that we know that it is, as a district we should utilize it in a format that people are familiar with. And we need to put our own message out there and talk about what we're doing for kids, what we're doing that is worth celebrating. And I think that it's a medium that people are familiar with if we consolidate and create a plan that effectively tells what's going on that's positive and good. We've talked about all the tools at our disposal, which is where we talked about our tone of voice truly needs to be heard. Textcaster is an amazing tool. Not going to throw it to the side necessarily, but it's your voice, or it's your words only. It's not your voice. And we talked about and all agreed they need to hear, when we have certain situations, our voice saying, this is what we're doing, we have a plan, we care, and there's just no substitute for that. So I'm excited to get those pieces moving. We also have talked about the committee that's going to be formed and designating all the layers that are needed. A communication plan has to have many layers if you think of it like an onion. There's emergency communication. There's routine communications in terms of within buildings, from buildings to parents, et cetera. And then there's all the formats we want to use. And we want to make sure if we're a parent of 4 or 5 kids, or like my mom, parent of 8, if they go to 4 different buildings in the school district, do they have to have 4 different modes of communication? Let's not do that. Let's make it easy for our parents. So we're setting deadlines and we're getting prepared for that board approval by October. And that's our one example. I've talked really fast. I'm going to stop for just a second, see if there's any questions before I finish this up in regards to the governance plan. Okay, a couple other pieces separate from that I won't go quite as deep into, but I think they're exciting. Culture and climate survey by October is another thing that we're looking into that I'm excited to share with our stakeholders as well. There again, we've met with the central office staff and discussed how will we find out how people feel about the culture and climate of our district, in our buildings as a school district, and in our community. So by August, we will have identified, which is coming very quickly, we're well on our way, all the stakeholder groups such as parents, staff, students, and community that we need to hear from. Then we're creating a survey in multiple formats to share out and collect their responses. We have to have that done by September, and we will share it publicly, as the governance plan says we will, I believe, by October. We will present back to you. The big thing that we're seeking here is not to be perfect, but to be honest and transparent. If there are shortcomings, we want to tell you what they are, and we want to make new goals and new timelines to achieve change that's meaningful to you guys as a Board of Education and to our, most importantly, our children and their parents. Only have a couple more points. It's kind of warm in here, so I hope you're staying with me. Didn't have a big supper before you came. I don't want to put you to sleep. But we're going to talk about some things. This goes back to the board training that our Board of Education spent that time doing. I keep referencing that retreat, that 8-hour day. The consultant, Dr. Henson, worked through a lot of things with us, talked about things that he referenced as board norms. Some of these things are a recap of what he shared with us that I think was powerful and that the board said they wanted to see in the months ahead, the next 100 days particularly. He talked about board roles and responsibilities, and that as a board, conducting ourselves in the best way that we possibly can, that we want to keep board business for board policies, for governance, and other legal requirements, and this is a big one, I think, evaluation of the superintendent. Accountability for the district starts with the superintendent. I'm evaluated by the Board of Education, and I think that needs to be a major focus. What does the Board of Education want from myself? And me being transparent, again, in where are we in that process, and being willing to reflect on it. I think that that's the way to model to all of our teachers and our in our district as a whole, that we're willing to subject ourselves to self-reflection and look at how we can improve. We can always improve. Dr. Henson called that majoring in the majors. These are the majors. He also talked about letting the past be the past, and he presents to many boards of education. This is specific to absolutely nothing, but just life in general and public education and the world we live in. This is a direct quote from his training, and this is where he talked about not majoring in the minors. There's big things and there's little things. Don't major in the minors, major in the majors, he said. He talked about we will not let situations that happened in the past keep us from serving our students, employees, and community. We will treat others the way we desire to be treated. We will continually work to develop strong communication, trust, and a positive working relationship. So this is another example of things he recommended be embedded in the board norms that we will present next month and work together on. And I'm really excited to work with this Board of Education who drove this train, if you will, and wanted this to happen for Marshall Public Schools. Lastly, advocacy is a part of board norms. And another direct quote from Dr. Henson: we will advocate for all of our school district and public education, not for individuals or special interests, but all students, all staff, and our entire district, and the better good of all we serve. These are the sort of things that are going to be embedded in the board norms that'll come to the board next month. And through our work tonight, we will be ironing out those details, and I'm sure there'll be many meetings and discussions where you guys sacrifice a lot more of your personal time. And I'm excited to put this out there. I think the community hopefully will be excited to see the work that we're doing and the sacrifice you guys have made for your school district. Jumping to one or two last things, I think this is next to last: building conditions and safety. Mr. Renke, our new assistant superintendent, starting with me July 1st, we've had 26 days to dig into a lot of things. Buildings have been a huge one. We have this governance plan now in place, and we have pretty aggressive timelines. and they include safety and security as well as buildings, and these two things absolutely overlap in what we see needs. And we recognize quickly that we are not those experts. If you need some of these construction things done, there are questions that we can't answer. We aren't the best people to answer. So we'll be seeking from the Board of Education some time in upcoming meetings as we're going to seek RFQs, a request for quotes. We learned some interesting things, and I'm going to show you some of those interesting things in upcoming slides. But some of them are specific to our building conditions as well as possible vulnerability. All schools have vulnerability, by the way. I feel really good about what I'm about to show you. It's not a big, scary negative, but I think a hopeful insight to what this planning can look like for the district. We need, we think, to look at our doors, our locks, our secure vestibules. We need to look at the standard access district-wide or perhaps lack thereof. Do we have a universal key system, electronic key systems, safety vestibules? All those things take money and time and planning and collaboration. And so to think that Mr. Ranke or myself could present to the community and the Board of Education and say we know what's best, that would be misinformed. We're going to ask for these RFQs because we believe some architectural firms, some engineers, looking at our facilities, weighing in on some of these long-term plans and short-term plans is important. And they can see things that we just won't necessarily see. Let me give you some quick examples of that. We were lucky enough recently to have gotten an architectural group that I have worked with in the past. They were willing to sacrifice a little bit of time to give Marshall Public Schools a taste of what their kinds of organizations can offer. And they said, we come down, we give you 2-3 hours if you'll eat lunch with us. But they actually didn't even make us buy them lunch. I appreciated that. They even took us out to lunch, but they're probably hoping they get to do one of the RFQs. We'll see if they shake out to be the best or not, because that's who we want. But we said, let's go to Beaker. We've heard the roof's bad on Beaker. So we went over there, looked at it with them, and a classic example of why you want those professionals is what I'm going to show you. There are things that if you aren't a professional, you would look at and think, oh my goodness, I'm a little concerned about this. I see a loose seam, or I see a pocket of water here where the roof's starting to separate. The first thing they said when they looked at that roof was they said, this roof does not need new decking. It does not need a total tear off, and there are programs available for your Board of Education to look at where we could recoat, reseal, and give a 20-year warranty on this roof. But they said, you don't want to wait 3 years or it will need all new decking. It will be a complete and total tear off. So that was the first thing that I thought, well, there's a relief for things that you hear that aren't necessarily true, right, Jack? That was found to be untrue, and we are going to have a plan, and that takes some budget dollars, so we need to plan for things like that. It's still not cheap, but it's cheaper. They also looked at this really interesting stack, which I have to say, Beaker Middle School is one of the coolest architectural schools, and that has pros and cons. But they have these big stacks that you see here on the right that go all the way down to the basement and into the tunnels, so really almost down into the bowels of the building. And they were intended at the time it was built, according to the architects that came and saw us, it was all about airflow, pre-air conditioning days. And they said it actually has wonderful implications still today for your HVAC system to let that flow and work the way that it's supposed to. But they said it looks like you probably brought in some folks to do the roof the last time who were skilled in roofing, didn't necessarily know about HVAC, which is why you want those experts. So they showed us, if you look at the right and you see that metal covered, looks like windows, they said that was actually intended ventilation that was covered at the time it was roofed. And from a roofer's perspective, it probably made sense. Seal it up, keep the precipitation out. They said it was not in the best interest of the roof's longevity probably, and certainly not the HVAC's efficiency to do that. And then as we walked through the building, we found all these vents throughout the whole building. Well, again, we're not professionals, we're school teachers and principals and superintendents. So if you've got a drafty vent, cover it up, right? Really insightful, and I think that's what we're going to get out of the RFQs and the professionals that'll come and present to us is simple things like that that just tell us where we are. And it's not all going to be scary. There's going to be good things that come from that. Most of the time, a decision like that costs you some money up front, saves you a lot in the long run. The last item, and then I'll take any questions and be quiet for a while because it is warm in here and getting late. Thank you for your patience as I presented all that. Community and district relations is one of the other items I want to just touch on as I introduce our first 100 days and things that are important to us. The board said this from the very beginning when they interviewed me. It is important to them that the superintendent be visible in our community and work on partnerships with our community. I gave them my word that I would do that. I have not so far in the first 26 days gotten it going, but we have a list going. We're working to make contact, and we are going to do that, and we are hungry for the community, as well as the board, who's already given us a lot of great direction, to reach out to us, give us an email, and let us know about community organizations that you might be a part of. We want to work with them. And some examples, not the greatest, not the greats, not the least, but just a few examples: Chamber of Commerce, Rotary, City Council, Ministerial Alliance, and anything like that. If you see an opportunity for the school district and the community to partner together, we want to do that, and we want to be visible with those organizations because we think it's what's best for kids. Any questions for me before I put David on the hot seat and rest my voice a while?
2 weeks from today, he's going to Kiwanis with me, and I told him today to write all the questions down so they'll have 100 questions. No, I'm teasing.
Yeah, I look forward to it. I look forward to it. All right, I'm going to pass it over, if you're ready, to
Go ahead.
Mr. Ranky, who I said you can give a verbal report. They'll be sick of hearing us talk about it
Okay,
anyway. So.
thank you very much. I will not take as long as you on this, I promise that. Can you flip one more here? I don't want to take away from Mrs. Jones's thunder here, but I did take some pictures of the high school. I want to kind of give an update on that. The high school's, it's coming along well. The ceiling grid and the tiles are all installed. The electrical work is on track. Service master is going to be installing exterior doors and sink basins. I'm hoping this week or into next. They're still working. The biggest portion we have is still tearing out the carpet and getting the floor down. The anticipated date on that is the first week in August they should be done. August 2nd or 3rd. And then the painters, Tolliver Painting, we had a meeting with him. He will have some touch-ups that they're more willing to come in and do, and it will take them about 2 to 3 days after that, but we want to get the flooring all done. So in the grand scheme of things, I'm very optimistic that we will be able to start school on time. Hopefully we don't have any hiccups coming up. So that's kind of the update on that. Mrs. Jones, I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, we're moving along.
Yep, okay.
David, I would just say that a significant thing as a parent, going back in the building as it looks now, the smell is completely gone. And the smell was there the third week of May. And
Yep.
the third week in July, it's completely gone. So we certainly have found that probably the flooring was a major contributor to that odor.
I think
So
so, too.
just for parents sending your kiddos back, you can be relieved and renewed that it is a new, fresh space that does not smell like smoke or fire, so.
Yep.
No, I would make the comment, I went through Friday with people. I'm glad you're real optimistic, David. I'm a little pessimistic whether they're gonna make it or not.
Ah,
Yeah.
Seeing
they're
what's
close.
there to be done yet.
They're close.
There is a lot of work to be done yet, but we'll keep track of it and go from there. So, but yeah, I completely agree with you. And I mean, it smells clean and it's a lot brighter. So
Yep.
And as you said, Jack, I toured the high school at 5 o'clock tonight. So there is still a lot of work to do. They are bringing in some extra work crews to get some work done. And they realize our timelines, and they are committed to getting done on those timelines. So hopefully when we meet again, we'll be talking more about how great we walk through the building. We do have an open house scheduled for about the third week in August, and those dates are still set and firm. So make sure you plan to come out and check out the new building.
All right.
Go ahead.
I have a couple more things I just wanted to make the board aware of. And what was this, 27th day we've been at?
26 or
26. So, out at the bus barn, our fuel tanks, we have a fuel spill containment system. And basically what that is, it's a concrete tub that's in the ground. So when they're filling up the tanks, if anything spills, it'll be able to catch that and they'll be able to clean that up. In our last inspection, the one tank does have a crack in it. So we are going to have to fix that, and Mid-State Petroleum Equipment will come in and they will dig out the existing containment tank and pour the new tank around it.
When was that inspection?
It was last month, and I don't know the date
Okay.
off the top of my head.
Okay, that's fine.
So, I can go back and
I don't
find
need it,
that
I
for
just
you.
was curious if it was last month or
I'm-
3 months.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was last
30
month.
days.
I would-
Okay,
And the cost of that's gonna be $8,305.34. So that's what's happening out at the bus barn right now. One of the big things that we have found, at Southwest Elementary School, in the front wall of in the front wall of the building in the library, underneath the arch windows, we have found a colony of termites. So we are going to have to, bring in a company. We talked to Steve's Pest Control, had a meeting with them week and a half ago, I believe. We went with Steve's because we already contract with them, and they will be able to treat the entire building. That will be $2,595 that we're gonna have to do to get rid of the termites, and then go from there, so. So that's kind of what I have on facilities right now. I do, on a personal note, you know, it has been a busy month. It's been really great getting acclimated into Marshall Public Schools. There are just so many good people here that has helped me, and I know Mr. Pettit, getting us introduced to people, showing us around, showing us some of the ropes. The list is too long to read, but I just really want to express my gratitude to all those people, and we're very excited and looking forward to it.
How much damage had the termites done?
Well, it's hard to tell, okay, because they said do not tear anything out in the wall, because once you start tearing things out, if they have not spread, they don't want them to spread. So they want to kill the colony first, and then we can go from there. And that's all I have.
All right.
Does anybody have any questions?
okay.
All right. Believe it or not, we had no old business. Nobody cheered for that. So moving on to new business. So the first thing is we need to look at setting the date for the tax hearing. We typically do that about 15 minutes prior to the August board meeting, so that we can do that. We get our numbers directly from the state auditor's office as well. So we will have information from them to deliberate on and set that amount coming forward.
I'll
This
move
was
we move
the first night that I met Jack last year. So this kind of brings him full circle on the board as he came to talk to us about his taxes last year, so.
I move we accept make the August 23rd board meeting 5:45 for its tax rate hearing.
I'll second.
That is an action item. No.
It is not an action
not
item,
an
Oh, I
but
thought it was underneath
we,
it here.
we
Yeah.
all, sounds like we're in at least 2 or 3 agreement to go there, but that is the date that we will
Not
be
okay to come
using.
that early.
I withdraw my movement.
Didn't have one to make, I guess, Harry.
So,
I thought that was like on the end of that.
I did
Okay.
too.
so moving along, we will be meeting at 5:45 prior to the next board meeting to set the tax rate and do the tax rate hearing. Approval of occupational therapy assistant job description. There's a job description that was sent to you all. We do have a number of children who need some services within our district, whether they're OT, PT, speech language path, all of those different varieties. We need some assistance with that. Grace, is there anything that we need to add as far as the discussion? I know you all had the job application, the job description in your packet. Okay. This person will be working, this will be a qualified OT person who will be working under the oversight of our full-time OT person as well, so just to be clear.
And this is the first time we've had an assistant, an OT assistant?
We have a parent who filled out the role. This is the first time we're on a certified individual.
Working full-time.
Yes, that's it.
I'll make a motion, we approve occupational therapy assistant job description.
Yeah, I'll second. This is one of the positions where, have we struggled to fill OT positions recently? No? Okay, it's the speech language one. That's what I've been struggling all weekend to think like, wait, aren't we having trouble? Okay, never mind, back on track. Yeah, so definitely second.
Okay. Are there any more questions or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Abstaining? Or nay? Next, I look for approval for the readoption of the MSBA policy BBFA. This is for board member conflict of interest and financial disclosure. This was included in your packet as well, and is a pretty straightforward policy that we've all looked at before, which just outlines special interest and making sure that we report those interests into anyone we do business with, making sure that we don't represent a partial or complete ownership in the company. I believe it's anything of a $10,000 investment, and any profits that we would receive from the district, and making sure we report those and we remove ourselves from voting when there could be financial gain for us personally within those policies, is the brief of that.
I move that we accept.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstaining? As any good construction project goes, any of you all who have remodeled anything within your homes or anywhere else, there are always things that come up while you're remodeling, one of which is remodeling a building with 40-year-old modular walls, removing the baseboards and the trim that go to those walls, and finding out that it does not go back onto those walls, that pieces break and bend off of that. And so we need to replace a number of pieces of baseboard and trim that are within the building, as well as some areas which we did not have trim or baseboards in before, such as around the island or some of the more common or larger areas within the carpeted or educational wing of the building that we're replacing the floor in. So to that end, there is a $25,000, $740 fee for us to add flooring for a number of thousands of feet. I forgot how many it was exactly by looking at the measurement of that, but to make sure we have baseboard and trim to go along our new floor and in our classrooms.
I think this is a really good opportunity for us to say that some of the bids that we were getting, while the board was asking, does this include this? We were being told yes, but in actuality, it didn't. Example would be painting the high school doors. I specifically asked, would those be painted with the walls? In one bid, it said they would. In the bid we accepted, it was not listed. I specifically asked, are the doors included to be painted? Because no wonder the other bid was higher. It had doors included. The bid that we accepted did not paint the doors. And so as we have new people giving us bids, going out and seeking and doing the work for us as a board, I trust that when we receive a bid that we're getting all of the details. And this would have been one of those. We missed it. It wasn't on the bid paperwork that we received. We looked at, I'm using the doors as an example because they were not on one and they were on the other. And so just so people know, we are and have been asking questions. This is another good example of we just didn't get all of the information on a bid. So,
Some of these things are kind of hard to predict.
yes and no. You're gonna need, when, well,
No, that's not right. Does this include what was talked about on Friday on the island? Is it going back to carpet, or is he gonna do?
It's the island, and what's going to happen with it will be the same as it was originally.
So it's gonna be carpet on there instead of?
No, I'm
No,
sorry.
sir.
I don't mean that way originally. It's the original plan, which is it's going to have wainscoting with baseboard and the plank flooring on top.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I know
The
we're
island
talking
has
about
already been covered on top with the plank flooring. The backing for the wainscoting has been added. I saw that today. The wainscoting will be added, and then it will be lined around with, baseboard or trim as well. Before, there were two sections of carpet that met up on that corner, and so there was never any trim around that area, so there wasn't even trim to remove in those areas. But within some of the classrooms, removing the trim caused some breakage and some other things. This doesn't change the labor in the bid. This is only for the materials itself to go back in. The labor will still be the same, and it doesn't change the amount that we're paying for the craftsmanship or our manpower, just the actual materials to put back.
this is exactly the problem we had when we remodeled the gymnasium. We thought that the trim could all go back on, And it just kind of, some of it literally crumbled as we took it off, so I'm not surprised that
As I
this is a need.
remember, this was over a $300,000 bid? that
I don't know.
That we approved
I don't know how much it was, I
for
don't remember.
4 guys?
Oh, no.
No, it wasn't that high.
No, wasn't even near that.
Yeah, I think it was. It
I'm not
was
sure about that.
I don't think so. I don't think it was even close to 300.
I want to say like 141.50 is what it was.
I thought it was closer to 2, Jack, myself, but I don't remember exactly what the number was.
I was thinking 2 as well.
I'd like to know that.
I'll tell you,
We-
I
actually,
mean, it
have it-
doesn't change if the,
We have it in the past minutes. I'll be able to pull those for you in a few minutes when I look through and sign the past minutes with Linda. So I'll get that number for you between
There it is,
meetings.
Jack. Oh, no, that's the new one. I think I threw it away.
I don't know when we did that.
we have been working to compile, Jack. We've been working to compile what the total expenditures for the fire from the district standpoint has been up to date and what reimbursements have been up to date. It takes a while. It's going to take a little while to get that all compiled, but we're wanting to get those specific numbers into a spreadsheet that we will be sharing with the board as well. We attempted, but there was no way to get it to you by this month. I hope by next month we can have a spreadsheet that shows all that too, because I really want to know myself.
Does the insurance have anything to do with this? Will they cover this?
No.
No, this is,
They're not gonna cover this.
no, this
We
is,
chose to do
this is a change that wasn't, they covered a lot of the flooring. This does come into somewhat of the flooring, but it's not something for them to recoup according to conversations with them.
However, just like I just said, there is no smell in that building now that carpet is gone. So I'm not so sure that we can't go back to the insurance company and say, okay, we took it out because we wanted it gone, but you said it wasn't a problem. And clearly it was a problem.
We fought that battle over and over and over again, and they wouldn't,
Who fought it, though?
no, wow, I don't,
Who fought
supposedly
it?
we fought.
I'm not sure we really fought it.
Yeah, I
So
guess.
at this point, I would not be sad if we went back to that insurance company and said, okay, the day before we took that carpet out, it stunk and was bad in here. Adults couldn't breathe in here. People had allergic reactions were awful. Those same people can walk back in this building and are fine. The carpet is gone. This was a liability and a problem.
We argued from the beginning that the carpet had to be
Well, we are,
replaced.
yeah,
But I
but
don't
they
know.
wouldn't go with it. I'm not so sure now. Surely our insurance company's been in there since we made these changes, right?
They've been in some, and there's been some reimbursements, and I definitely think there's a lot of conversations that need to be had.
There's a lot of conversations, and even if our attorneys have to get involved, there's a lot of conversations that need to be had.
In worst case scenario, what they tell us, well, we'll just have another air quality test and it shows us nothing. It doesn't hurt to ask. Doesn't hurt to ask.
Right, and some of the carpet was contained underneath the insurance partial. We'll see what the percentage was and where we went, because they did agree to do
That hallway, right?
the hallway, some of the partial hallway down towards the home ec area. And so we'll see what else we can come out of that with our discussions as we move with them, because we're still in discussions over some equipment and some other pieces. Mr. Pettit and I were talking about that the other day, and if I talk about the numbers now, Jack, it will probably throw you completely off again, but where we are. But we will definitely be looking at the ins and the outs and talking with them. The insurance company is still the oversight of some of the project stuff that is going on, because it's part of the reconditioning work that they're still on the hook for, as far as like the ceiling grids and some of those things that were going on, so. Now, though, back to the baseboards.
I'm gonna sidestep one time. Jack was right. It was 330,000 for the floor.
Okay, did you find it? Okay.
What was it?
330?
330 in that
Argue
vicinity.
the numbers again.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was that month. I don't remember.
So
What month was that, Matt?
Is that June or is that May?
that would have been April or May's meeting, yes.
May.
I believe it was May, because we were starting to look at work for the summer.
Yeah, May was my first meeting.
Okay.
You and I even high-fived when we passed it.
So that was May? I'm just gonna go back and look at the minutes.
Either April or May.
Was it-
I'll make a motion, we accept the change order for the baseboard.
I'm not gonna argue your numbers again.
There's a motion to accept the change order at 25,740 for a full replacement of the baseboards.
Yeah, second. What are we gonna do? We gotta have them.
So it's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor of completing the building and plating baseboards, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
2 opposed? Ellen, were you an aye?
Yeah.
All right.
Got
So
our
that would
baseboard.
be 4 and 2. Any abstaining? I believe that counted everyone. Thank you. Next, we're going to be looking for approval to change the date of the monthly board meetings and discussions with Mr. Pettit. He'd like us to look at a little bit different timeline of those. So I am going to let him explain a little bit about that as we go on and ramble for just a second to collect
Yes.
himself.
So regarding that, you all currently meet, and I may rely on Linda to correct me if I get off track on my recollection of this. You all currently meet the first Tuesday after the 20th? The Tuesday on or after the 20th of each month. That is really not going to be a significant change from this proposal. However, in terms of these communication plans and probably some of our accounting practices to kind of be ahead of these risk assessment audits and such, I believe fixing it to a, say, third or fourth Tuesday of each month. I believe we're proposing fourth. If we propose the fourth Tuesday of each month, it's just going to allow for us to have some practices among the other facets of the district, such as when admin meetings fall out, trying to have some more clear communication from the administrative team to the Board of Education. We can consistently plan for when we meet amongst ourselves administratively and prepare for presentations. We can also probably look at some of our accounting practices more easily, and I think it might just be more in line with sort of the way things are moving in a lot of public school settings. And I also don't think it'll impact a great deal of the proposed calendar you all had already to change it to the fourth Tuesday of each month.
Have you given any more thought to it? It seems like Dr. Henson said to pay twice a month instead of just once a month.
Yes, we had probably, it would be fair to say, intended to have that in this month and just didn't get it there. I would look for us to speak to that next month, to change to like a bi-weekly bill pay process. And I think that too might be ahead of our risk assessment audit that's coming to us in August. When we report to that, we'll already be a couple steps ahead, I do believe.
So because this is a time-driven, or in our policy, we outline exactly when that's going to happen. So therefore, we would just need to change the verbiage in our policy to reflect the fact that we're going to meet on the fourth Tuesday of the month, regardless of how it falls after the Tuesday after the 20th.
Yeah, we've been needing to change that policy anyway because it still said that we were meeting in the high school library. So I don't think it had been changed since 2014. I remember reading like 2 years ago, they were like, high school library.
I've
With
never been to high school
apologies, right? Like, no.
Yeah.
So we will be doing some revisions to the policy, and it seems like I need a motion to say that we are in favor of looking at those revisions, and then we will have a completed policy to adopt next
moved.
We've
meeting.
got it. No, I thought we
Second.
had, Linda had like a penciled in version.
Yeah, Linda's already sent it to us.
Does it still say
And
the
she
gym,
did- No.
or the, you
No.
changed the library
Yeah,
as well?
she changed
Okay.
it.
I browsed it, I'm not gonna lie, I browsed that policy. I read every other word of some other things that I should never have, such as the 120-page compliance plan I read too much of. But,
Yeah.
so
I
there was a
made a motion
motion from Ms.
Second.
Lance and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Thank you. Next, we're going to be looking at some approval for the special education and federal program contracts. Those were all in our orientation, our packet materials as well. And any questions, I will let you ask of Ms. Durham, who's our expert of the special ed department. Basically, the Perkins Freedom Mobility was for us to do assessments, and I believe that was a contracted rate. Was that $100 an hour for that contracted rate on that one? Direct on-site, yes. Which would be physically on-site. The Therapy Unlimited was a group doing speech and language supervision. Those were $70 an hour services, which I thought was quite a premium, actually, considering all the problems we've had with speech language paths. and then the local compliance plan, which is a state document that had more pages to it than I probably should have dove into.
Is Grace gonna
My
read them
blessings
to
to
us?
you for, yes.
Just asking,
I am glad that you are a subject matter expert for that, and well, I appreciate all the hours that you spent making sure we adhere to all the things that are wrapped into that policy book. So,
I would move that we accept all three.
I'll second.
Any important updates or changes? Okay,
It seemed pretty routine.
thank you.
I read
I
some.
shouldn't say that out loud. I mean, I'm sure there are nothing that is gonna change the way that we do things.
Operations,
That will impact the district, yes.
thank you.
it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
So now I am looking for a motion for us to close and move into open session, closed session. So moved? Is there a second?
Yeah, second, going into closed session for the purposes of hiring, terminating, disciplining, or promoting, and personnel records, evaluations, and applications.
Harry?
Aye.
Jack? Ellen?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
And I. Thank you all.